Sarah Mellor from the Deep. This is the summation of quite a few years' worth of work, this is. So I'm going to try and just keep it down as far as possible. Please be aware that I'm here for the duration, I'm out for the drinks, I'm here for the gala, and I am happy to be stopped and asked questions about this by anybody at any time. Right, okay. So that's our message, to create a deeper understanding and enjoyment of the world's oceans to empower positive changes for their survival. Can you move on? Everybody's got a message, everybody's got that kind of thing. Everybody wants to get this message across to the public, get the public changing their behaviour, but that is incredibly difficult because people are very resistant to changing behaviour. As a child, as a teenager, you build walls in your head called "this is how the world works," and it is incredibly hard to break those walls down and make someone change. Impossible as making penguins fly. So we really need to get them to learn stuff, because we really need to get them to change behaviour, and they won't do it unless we tell them what's wrong and why. Now everybody has seen, I don't know if you can see it at the back, but everybody knows the bottom one, the stages of change one. Basically, you divide it into, they don't know, they do know, they decide to change, they maintain that change. It's dead easy, it turns up all over the place. It is not entirely correct, because we are intelligent, complicated, social animals, so almost every stage of that gets completely blatted by the fact that we are social beings. So two theories that really do come into this. This is observing and learning from others. That's what you do very much. And your behaviour is reinforced by the behaviour of other people. You want to change behaviour, it's always done in a social manner. Everybody knows about that, that's how we all learn. This one is when you plan to do something, you intend a behaviour, you weigh up in your mind, what are other people's attitudes to this? How easy or difficult is it for other people's attitudes? And interestingly, you also weigh up, what is the social cost of this behaviour? Is it going to be difficult? Is it going to be expensive in social terms? We look at all of this. So this kind of just gets, knocked on the head at the lowest level, I'm afraid. Now, I did a fair bit of research on this, and the best people to look at were the European Union of Food Change people. They've spent decades attempting to get people to eat healthily right across Europe, and they've failed. So they know all about this. And if you go to their website, EUFIC, and you search for behaviour change models and strategies, it's in the notes that's available from Dartmoor, then you will get to a really lovely essay on all about this. It's a really nice place to look. We'll move on to another one. So, social behaviour. That means the social learning environment is absolutely vital. We do not tend to take things in if we do not have a positive learning environment. Now, the negative example I've given, you're wet, it's raining, you haven't got a coat or an umbrella, you've trodden in something disgusting, it's boring around you, nobody else is listening, and the person speaking is condescending, doesn't care about you, and has an umbrella. You are not going to learn anything positive about cows. You're really not. You might want to mug them and take the umbrella, but that's all I'd take away from that. Positive example, people need to be warm, dry, well-fed and clean with an interesting environment. Now, a lot of that is entirely outside our control. We can only control certain bits. But you need other people listening before you also listen and take it in. And you need a friendly and clearly passionate person speaking to you, because they will grab your interest and attention. They will make you think that what they're saying to you is really important, and so you take it with you. So that is very important, but quite a bit of that is outside of your control. Some of it is within your control. How we learn things now in schools, anybody who's a teacher, you've seen something like this already, I've got some people nodding. It's in a school though. People coming to the Deep, this is my place, or any of your attractions, There's no test at the end of the day. They don't have to know this. They've paid money for a fun day out. They are in an entirely different mindset, in a totally different place. So this does not necessarily apply. So be careful when you argue that this applies, because really, in many ways, it doesn't. So, then I had to assess public learning. Now this is quite difficult to do. The first thing about public learning is that I needed an assessment method which enclosed everybody. You get an IT survey and you've knocked off a huge percentage of the population who can't do IT, and another massive percentage of the population who go, another IT survey? I'm not doing this. You really do, so that's no good. If you have stuff that has very small writing on it, you've knocked off a huge percentage of the population who can't read it anymore. You have to have something which is dead easy, anybody can access, anybody can physically do it, yes? And that was difficult. I couldn't think of anything until Glenn, on the way to a Biazza regional meeting, came up with, why don't we give them a button drop? Tick. Everybody can do that. Socially, in our UK anyway, everybody's had training with button drops at the end of supermarkets, haven't they? So they've all had training in this already. You can use large print on it. I'm sorry the pictures are quite fuzzy, but you can use large print on it. Please take a button, please answer the learning question. And it will work. Okay, so I've got an assessment method. How do I set it up? I had to set it up so that it didn't involve any of the staff at the Deep. As soon as you involve another person, the social aspect comes into it, and you want to please them. This skews your data completely. Anybody with a clipboard, anybody physically asking the question, anybody standing there, your data is skewed. I also needed you not be able to see previous answers, because you will be guided what people have said before. So it must be an opaque boxes that they put it into. Cannot be clear, cannot be see-through. One option of their choices needs to be popular. If they've picked up this button and they don't really know where to put it and they looked at it and they didn't actually learn about that, they can put it in a popular option. So one of the choices needs to be popular to get round that mental problem. One of the options also needs to be none of these to get round the other problem where they pick up a button and say, I didn't learn about any of those, or where am I going to put it? Oh, I'll stick it in that one. Yeah? Remove that by having a none of these option. So, we're getting somewhere. Then I have to target public visitors, not schools. Schools have done formal learning on a particular topic, and if it hits what I'm asking the public about, that skews my data. Yes? And then I have please take one button, because families tend to discuss amongst themselves what they've done that day, what they've learnt about, all the rest of that. I get a much better picture if I've got one button for a family and they look at it and they say, okay, so what did we learn about? Well, there was that talk about seals. Okay, I'll stick it in that one. Yeah? I get a better idea of what they've learnt about from that. I also needed at least 3 weeks of baseline data, because all of the things that we end up doing extra as events, we do anyway, as part of our message in the attraction anyway, so there will be a certain amount of public learning about that anyway. If I want to assess whether they're learning more because we're focusing on it over Christmas or something, I need to know how much they were learning first in order to know whether it's improved or not. Everybody's still with me, by the way. I know I'm rattling through this, I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying. You can ask me questions. And at least 3 weeks of baseline data. I'd rather have more taking the data week on week, but the bigger the number of buttons used, the more level and smooth and acceptable the data is going to be, the less variation you get within the data. If I had too much variation within the data, I would not think of this as a good method at all. And also, this is in the shop. This is at the end of the shop. This is the last thing before they leave the building. They can go and miss the shop altogether if they want to, but they come through the shop. This is the last thing. And there are no notices. There's nothing big about this. It's just there. And they might see it, and they might do it, and that's fine. But nobody's asking them. There's no big arrow, nothing like that. And I also have to rule out the data altogether if the shop tell me that some little kid has come along and taken the outside board off and dropped it on the floor. Yeah? I just have to rule out the whole thing. So, what did we find? We can move on a bit. Okay, I took 6 events. The guides have run all of these. They are all over holiday periods, sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes longer than that. And only the guiding team has been involved. There's been no extra speaker from another department. There's been nobody visiting from the RSPCA or somebody. There's been nobody flogging a book. You know, there's been nothing extra. It is just the guiding team. There was no difference in marketing for any of these events, the social media and all the rest of that. And I didn't have any problems with the data that was collected for these particular events. So I've given them titles of the events, when they happened. This is the percentage of learning before the event happens. This is my baseline data. And this is the increase in learning during the event. So this is while the event was going on. That's what people were telling me. And you can see that the guiding team do actually teach the public stuff. They really do. I was so pleased when I got these pluses. They are genuinely teaching them. This is actually an average of about 3.5% of visitors to the Deep. And it's a steady average right across the time. Doesn't change much. Now, 3.5%, you're probably thinking, ooh, that's tiny. I thought it was great. You know, working with the public, very hard to do. I'm not even asking them to do this, yes? 3.5% is actually quite active. And what's more, it stays 3.5% during the dead times in January, during the exciting times at Christmas. It still stays at about that number. That is 17,500 individual, private, public responses to a question I've asked about learning. That is a big set of data, and I'm very pleased with it. You might also notice from the dates that I carefully left out the COVID years, because that again will skew people's responses socially. So we're pre-COVID and we're after COVID, after all the restrictions have gone. Okay, can you move on to another one? So, you might have noticed in the previous slide, some were better than others. Why? All of these events have a number of different parts in them. They've all got some kind of presentation, but there might be face painting, there might be badge making, there might be craft activity, activity tables. You do all kinds of different things. So I need to find out what was going on. Now, I'm pretty certain that the amount a person gets engaged with something, because I was a secondary science teacher, the amount a person gets engaged with something influences how much they take away from it, how much they learn from it. So this is what I was looking at. Only guides who took part in the particular sections of the events were allowed to respond. You couldn't guess an answer for this for me. I didn't accept guesses. You had to have taken part in this. I asked them to give me their personal, private opinion on how well the public was engaged for all of these different parts. Were they interested in the face painting? You know, what was their engagement with the presentations? And if they hadn't done the face painting, if they hadn't done the presentations, I didn't want to know. I didn't want guesses. I wanted people who were there on the spot working with the public. Now, I got over 150 separate individual responses, so I think that was quite good across the 6 sets. Gave them a simple choice of 1 to 5. Now, I know there aren't very many mathematicians in the room, so therefore I've put it pictorially. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. 1 is pretty rubbish. The public were like, you know. and that's a dark cloud. 2 is below average, you know, the sun's just coming out. 3 is average. 4 is above average, that's good. Yeah, good response, good people talking, good. 5 is just excellent. Really fantastic response, really fantastic engagement. So, what did we get? Can we move on another one? Now, sorry, you can't see the red very well, I do apologise. But what I did was, I put the increase in public learning above the baseline, and I increased it across the 6 events. So that was the worst, this is the best. Then I averaged and meaned up the responses that the guides told me about public engagement and put in the pictures. So this event had two different parts to it. This one had 4 different parts to it, you see? Everybody still with me? Brilliant, excellent. I did not expect it to be this good. Because I'm working with real life data, I expected it to look like someone's thrown up on the paper, because that's what it normally looks like. But this is absolutely fantastic. And I think it totally proves that if the public is engaged and interested in what you're doing, they will learn more about it. And as all we're trying to do is get our message across, we need them to learn. This one at the end, I particularly liked. That was the Turtley Awesome Summer. And we were starting from a high place in background learning anyway, because everybody likes turtles. But it went up much more. People were so involved. Can I have the next one, please? And the middle of the table, you could see from the table there's an adding on effect for engagement. These are the actual numbers for any mathematicians in the room. There's an adding on effect for engagement. So it's not just the top-rated activity. You have a few top-rated activities. They add on a lot more. And also a less engaging activity. You've got a few really good ones and one really crap one. The really crap one doesn't bring the public learning down. It just doesn't add on very much. So we need to investigate this. What makes some activities better? The best and worst from the top and bottom. Turtle Hospital Station's got a 5 from every guide who was involved with it. People constantly doing this, hands in, very busy. Then we get down to the bottom. Life in the Humber slides on the big screen on the wall. Not interactive, background only, no sound. Excellent, down to really rubbish. There's a pattern building here, but I wanted to look at the pattern in more detail, so I looked at the individual kinds of activities within the events. Start with the presentations. Lots of kids doing fun things, hands in, always lots of interaction. The Sawfish, lots of kids up. Involved a magic box making things disappear. Kids enjoyed it, sticking Velcroed animals on. We're still above average. Sand everywhere, very hands-on and interactive, close to hospital tables. Now we're below average, not interactive, just talking. So there's a clear, lots of people, increases the social interest, which helps to create the positive attitudes and brings the learning with it. Lots of kids involved in your presentation, lots of audience interaction with you, and you get the message across better. Now the bottom sentence, and I'm sorry, a load of you won't be able to read this at the back of the room, so I'll tell you in a second. This is hearsay. I went round and asked the guys about all these, you see, because I was finding out about this. When they told me about the turtles, when they told me about the Sawfish, their faces lit up, because they really enjoyed it. Carmen told me about the extendable wand that she nearly put up her nose at one point, you know, things like that. They enjoyed these. So, excited, enthusiastic, obviously passionate speaker, enjoying themselves, creates more interest in the visitors. This is the social aspect of us being social animals. If you yourself are enjoying what you're saying, and you're clearly passionate and you're involving people, getting kids up to do fun stuff, not just standing there, but actually doing fun stuff, it works. Can we have the next pictures? Here's some kids laying eggs into sand buckets in a turtle presentation, and you know, investigating, and there's the magic box which made things disappear. You know, this sort of thing worked. Activities. Top is Turtle Hospital Station, people constantly doing things. Shark anatomy activities, pretty constant hands-on doing things. Come down, we get down to a case of rostrums. Interesting to look at. The guide was wandering around nearby and did talk about them to people. And then the big fish demo. There was a big cuddly fish, yes? And they waved its bits around and people could touch the cuddly toy. Nah. So, we move on again. Activities, you needed to be doing stuff, they needed to be interesting. This is Lindsay demonstrating one of the shark activity tables, which was so busy. That's the big food chain with Adam. Bet you didn't realise you were going to star in this, Adam. The food chain where they had to come and stick stuff on the board. The microscopes we have with Artemia swimming about. People enjoyed coming and looking at them. The stuff has to be interesting. So, hands-on doing things gave a much better audience participation. And lots of people involved. People doing something encourages others to have a go. Again, I'm back to us being social animals. You see somebody doing something, you feel free to go up and do it yourself. Yes, we all do this, and it really works. Interesting objects also help to engage attention. You all know what the public like in your attraction, what they enjoy looking at and handling. Make sure it's interesting. Trails. Don't know if you do trails, but we do trails at the Deep, so I have a look. Turtle Trail came out really highly, pictures on the floor. Big species pictures of different species of turtles. Sawfish Trail, massive foam sawfish shapes on the wall. Sawfish are actually quite large, you know, ours. Facts and legends in it. The Seashore Animals Trail, you had to solve a mystery. So the different animals as you went round gave you information and clues as to who done it. Big Fish Trail, information on tanks. IUCN Red List Trail, big information on tanks. The information's really difficult. IUCN Red List? This is not easy. So, pictures on the floor actually worked best. Didn't expect that, but they did. They were big pictures of turtles and everybody liked them. Big foam shapes on walls caught the eye, but the trail with clues to solve worked just as well as the big foam shapes. Worst trail had difficult information. So this requires a combination of things to get your best results for public engagement. You need to catch interest with obvious big shapes of something, visual big clues, and you need to use interesting information that visitors enjoy finding out about. Get those two things linked together and you've got an absolute winner of a trail that everybody's going to enjoy doing. Craft activities. Turtle face painting, always very popular, the guides told me. Face painting just is. We've stopped it due to COVID. Hopefully we'll be able to start it again soon. Big fish badges, they colour them in. Now, I'm not showing you all the data I've got. I have masses of data on this. And the badges, whichever event it is, always come out as above average and around the 3.5. 3.5, 3.4, 3.6. Always at that level, so badges work. Bracelets were good. We're down to the sawfish headbands. They were a slightly phallic, chopstick-shaped headband. You had a sawfish there, made a headband out of it, oh yes. And then, a piece of paper with instructions on it. So, craft activities, face painting, always works. Now the reason for this, it is decorating yourself. You decorate yourself, you like it. We all do. So face painting really works. People enjoy it. Making something personal comes next because you've made something personal for yourself. Created a bracelet, made a badge. The sawfish rostrum wasn't as good, but that's because the cardboard and the headdress isn't as permanent. A badge you can wear again and again and again. Headdress is just going to break, isn't it? So socially speaking, those have more social status than this one does, and that one has the most social status. Again, it's back to us as animals. So to get our message across most effectively, you need a positive learning environment, passionate, interesting speakers, so everyone is interested, feels included, lots of people taking part, very important. Lots of fun activities, needs to be hands-on and doing stuff. You need trails that catch attention with well-positioned signs, and craft activities that preferably involve self-decoration or making something personal and permanent. And hopefully, do all of that, you will get wonderful public engagement, you'll get the most public learning possible. Can we move on another one? Better public engagement equals better public learning. I think I've proven that because I've been doing this for years and there really is a lovely clear thingy. So, thank you very much for listening.